Alright, we're good.
So basically, you're working here at the Westin.
Yep.
Right? How long have you worked at the Westin?
Worked at the Westin now for 16 months. Now they're one of the concierges, the head one or something. I use Moby Maps every single day, probably at least 40 different maps I'm sending out. And whether that means just quick directions to get to public gardens or one of the larger tourist attractions, Citadel Hill in the city, or even just getting directions on how to get to Peggy's Cove, because it actually goes all the way out and shows the rotary, which is really cool. So you can always draw that as well. It's great for displaying local restaurants around town. I particularly like a couple of them, a few of my favorites for sure. I love the Pita Pit up on Spring Garden Road because it's really laid back, quick lunch to go on the run. Like you don't want to go in and waste a bunch of your day when you're here in Halifax for only 1 or 2 days. You don't want to sit down and dine when it's a beautiful afternoon like today. You want to grab something quick and then
Almost
maybe
like
go into the garden. Exactly, like you can eat it on the go and go to the gardens. But it's great for like finer and nicer restaurants as well, which are on the maps. I'll give you one, Baton Rouge, really good spot to go if you like a steak or surf and turf, because a lot of people really like seafood, but some people don't. So there's somewhere you can go to get a mix of both, which is really nice.
And so do you find that it's because they're on the map, it makes it easier for you to show where they are?
Yeah, it 100% makes it easier. I mean, there's some restaurants, I'll give you one, the Five Fishermen, for example, which never used to be on the map, which is now on the map. And I used to just circle the building. Now it's labeled, it's right there. It's so much easier and convenient to recommend that to guests because they know exactly where it is on Argyle Street, right? I do circle places that aren't on the map if someone particularly asks about them or not, but it makes it a little bit more difficult for the guests to navigate it, especially if they're coming from a foreign area, especially if English is not their first language and I can't communicate with them really well. Sometimes, I mean, I'm not very good at French, so if I have a guest from Quebec, for example, and there's a bit of a language barrier, the map makes it so easy because you can actually physically show them and orient them. Okay, there's Cornwallis Park, here we are at the Westin, relative to everything on the map, and they kind of get a scope. I love using Cornwallis Park just to give you an idea to kind of scale how big the map is itself. Because they can see the park on the map and then they can see the park and think, okay, that's how big the park is, that's how big it is on the map, so I can kind of get an idea of how long it takes to get from one place to another.
Right. And you mentioned earlier that you think you give about 40 maps a day.
Yeah.
But that's just you.
That's just me. I mean, the front desk uses it all the time when people ask them. I'm always running around off doing something, maybe making reservations. Sometimes I'm pulling around cars here in the valet lot. They're always getting used, and that's just me. Guests go up and grab them themselves too sometimes and don't even need a hand.
Because you display them like out front, right on.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you come inside our lobby, there's actually both on our desk. We have 2 stacks of them on either side of our lobby, and then there's another 2 stacks at the front desk as well, and another stack at my computer there for concierge as well. So we just fly through those things. Like
I think last year you guys went through just about 15,000 maps last year.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's a big number.
It's a really big number, and it kind of gives you a scale too of how many tourists we get through the building, which is kind of cool as well, because you can kind of use that to track.
And not only do you get guests through the store, but you get like cruise ship people that come through the door too, right?
The Westin is really unique because it's located right next to the cruise terminal, and because we have a rental car location right in the hotel, we have a lot of guests who come through the back and come up to the main floor. And when they do that, they're coming to rent a car and they want to figure out where to go in the city. A lot of the time they're using myself, our concierge services, to direct them, and then that's when your maps come into play big time, because they don't have those on the cruise ships.
And do people do the reverse? Like, do people come to you with the map and say, hey, I was looking at this spot, can you tell me more about about this restaurant or this thing?
Yeah, that happens all the time. They're like, hey, would you recommend this place to eat? I see it on the map. Father's Mustache is one of them, because they advertise on their map that best patio in the city. They're like, is it actually the best patio? And I'm just like, okay, well, there's a little bit of bias in there. Everyone has their own give or take, but yeah, it's a great place to go, between 3 and 6 o'clock, to go and just feel that nice later lunch in the sun. It's an awesome patio, but there's a bunch of other ones too that I always try to recommend. But it's fun to get the guests asking you about restaurants without you having to tell them, because usually when a guest comes to you like, where should I go eat? I'm like, well, what are your tastes? At least when they see the map, they can kind of visualize what each restaurant is about, and then that helps me refine my recommendations to more to their taste personally.
And do you feel that the ad on there with the information, like the website or the phone number, allows them to make easier like reservations and get more information?
Yeah, it definitely does. If the guests can go out of their way and do it themselves, and that's great too, right? Because we don't get to interact with every guest we have in our hotel. That's the unfortunate reality of working in a large hotel. I'm just one guy, I don't get to interact with them. But If they can get the numbers, if they can see the websites, they can go on and do more digging themselves. Even the name, they can go on, see the name of the restaurant, and boom, Google, you're on TripAdvisor, and they're looking at TripAdvisor reviews just to kind of get a feel for it. So when they have that name, it makes a big difference.
And do you find that there's other stuff besides restaurants you recommend on the map? Is there retail type things? Or
There's a lot of retails and shops. One of them is Park Lane Mall. I send people there a lot because there's a lot of places they can hit up all in one setting. The thing that I wish there was more of on the map would be things like nightclubs and some more specific bars and not restaurants in the future, because a lot of the time I find guests coming to me, you know, sometime in the evening after they come back from something, like, hey, where's a great spot to go and have some drinks? And I'm just like, okay, I can try and set you up this.
You know, it's funny about that, because I literally had a conversation with a few bar owners, and they said, no, tourists don't go to clubs.
Yes, I will be the first person to tell them that they do go to clubs and they want to go out and they want to have a good time. They always do, no matter what age group, whether they're in their mid-40s or 50s and they want to go to like an Irish pub. And I mean, the Old Triangle's on there, which is great, but like Dirty Nelly's is another good one that I don't think is on there.
No.
They want to go and they want to know where they are, so it's easy. If you give them the map, you know, after you have a couple drinks, you know, they can kind of still navigate their well, and you can kind of circle it. And on the map, I'll draw out like, oh, be like 1, 2, like go to this place between this time and this time, go to this place between this time and this time, and I can give them. I set up like little mini pub crawls for like families or groups of friends who are always traveling, and it's great.
That's actually a pretty smart idea. I might actually use that idea.
Yeah.
A little mini pub crawl thing.
Yeah, I know exactly. So I love using the map for that purpose as well.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, do you use any other publications or any other maps here? Like, if you do, I'm happy to.
I use the Nova Scotia road map quite a bit when people are actually going inside the province. I know on the flip side of your map, you do have a blow up of the major highways, but the Nova Scotia road map is just so much bigger, and you can really zoom in and see like every individual path. So it's good for pointing out specific places. Halls Harbor, really good place to go. People want to go to see the Bay of Fundy and see the tide, so I'm often drawing that out on the Nova Scotia road map. But as far as Halifax is concerned, I love Moby Maps. I use it all the time. I also have a map of Lunenburg as well. I use the UNESCO Heritage Site, which kind of zooms in and refines a bit more on Lunenburg, because we have a lot of people who like to go down to the South Shore. So I'll usually throw them in that and draw a couple things on there as well.
And it's important for me to know, like, genuinely what other people. I don't mind if there's if I have a competitor that you use, but I just really want my advertisers to know what is actually being used.
Yeah, no, so like for Halifax and like even Dartmouth and downtown Dartmouth, like your map is by far the go-to 100% of the time. It's readily available throughout our hotel, and I'm handing them out left, right, and center every day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, so your overall thoughts on Moby Maps?
I love Moby Maps. I actually like the 3D view of it. I think it's quirky, but it's really cool at the same time. So it kind of gives you, again, to the scale of how big everything is. It's really nicely done that way. I love the colors of it. Obviously, I'd like for more businesses and restaurants, particularly the nightclubs and things like that, to be on there, because that'd make my life a little bit easier with different things. But I use it for all businesses, and it makes it easier for the guests too to find something and be like, hey, what's this place? I'm looking for, a Mexican restaurant, Mexicali Roses or Taco Del Mar. They're right on there, and they can go see that and look it up and be like, and compare and contrast them on TripAdvisor and then choose one, or come to me and ask for a recommendation because they're on there.
So that's interesting, because you mentioned already like Taco Del Mar and Pita Pit and Five Fishermen, and those are all 3 new advertisers. That's like, I mean, if you use these maps for like years and years, a lot of the advertisers are the same. But the fact that you already know within because we just dropped them off to you like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
How is it that you already know a lot of the new advertisers?
Well, like I said, I'm using the maps all the time, so I'm extremely familiar with the map. And I even noted to you when we were talking, I think a couple of weeks ago, I was like, Five Fishermen's on there now, and they never used to be, for example. And like I would recognize that really quick. But those businesses are great, and I was sending them to them before, but not as in much frequency because they didn't know that they existed. So they never asked me to like compare and contrast these 2 restaurants. And now that they're on there, I can, and they're giving me the name. Because when they're asking, give me a place to go eat, that's such a vague question. If they want Mexican food, then maybe they'll be able to do a little research and then give me a question. And as a concierge, it's my job to give them that first-hand account, give them a little bit of deeper detail, and then of course I'll give them your map so they have directions to get there as well.
Yeah. So that's interesting that that people, because you don't know what to offer. Like it's such a somebody says what is there to eat, they might want like a pita to sushi to
like a fine restaurant like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just gonna vary completely. So I always have to ask for the taste. You know, do they want to eat on the water? Do they care about the setting? How lively do they want to be? Do they mind if it's darker? They're looking for something a little bit more private. So I ask them a bunch of questions to try and define it, and then based off that, I'll usually have a map and I'll draw out a couple recommendations. Maybe like take your pick. All these are good, or I'd recommend this one.
And do you find that there's people come to you with the map already? Like
oh yeah, that happens. That happens probably. I'd say that happens more so than me giving out the maps, actually, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have them so open in our hotel, it's very easy for guests to pick them up. And a lot of the times I'm out here, I'm talking to someone like yourself, or I'm talking to someone else off the corner, booking a reservation. That takes some time. While I'm doing that, there's someone else picking up a map, Like, hey, what do you think about this place? Often too, when I see someone with the map, I'll ask them, hey, do you need some help there with the map or help around town? So if I see them and I didn't talk to them and I notice they have the map, I offer to give, you know, a little bit more details, some anecdotes that I know myself.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. I never thought about it that way. That's good. Okay. Well, great. Yeah, I don't think I really have any more questions. I think you really answered everything. That's great. And I'm really glad that you like the maps and use them. I mean, you guys go through a heck of a lot of them here, and I really appreciate it. And I guess it's been almost 8 years we've been.
It certainly makes my job a lot easier, and I love that too. And it makes the guests happier, and that's what matters. When they come to you as a concierge, they're never unhappy. They're just looking to have more fun.
Right.
So all you need to do is just elevate it to the next level, and then your map makes it easier.
Wow, that's very kind of you to say. I appreciate that. Awesome, man. Thank you very much.
No problem.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.